Tell him about the time we faced.
All right. Well, as I remember.
At Avenger headquarters.
Because united, the Avengers are strong.
Welcome to the Marvel Evolution Show with myself, Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Straub.
And we are live today, and looks like the chat is working today. So we are live today to discuss the news of the week. Let me just make sure that we're live on the sites as well. Andy is not joining us today, so it's just Alex and myself. Let's see here. Let's check the page. The page, we are live, so that's good. The group, let's check the group. We are live in the group as well, so it looks like we're good to go. Let me just check Twitch because I didn't get the Twitch warning. Bear with me for a second here. Yep, we are live on Twitch, and let me just double check the Z Twitter account. Oh, and we have people already in the ticker, so it looks like whatever was the issue yesterday when we were doing a regular stream, our scheduled stream, with the chat and with everything else, it looks like we are good to go now. So let's go ahead and kick off the news special, since we're going to get caught up on news this week. Before I get started though, next week we will be streaming again on Saturday at 5:30 CST. So for you guys that are overseas in different time zones, that's 2 hours later than we usually stream. And also we will be streaming on Saturday with Fred, I think, for Agree or Disagree number 200, is it, Alex?
Yep.
Yep. So Saturday we'll be back with Andy and we'll have Fred on. But let's go ahead and get in the news. Looks like we have someone in the chat. Hey, who's out there in the chat? I can't see your name, so hey, also back to you. But let's get started with the news. So first thing, let's get started off with Secret Wars. There is a rumor that Feige's dream and his vision is to have a similar scene to the Portals one at the end of Avengers Endgame. However, instead of just being restricted to the MCU characters, we'll have multiple Marvel franchises converging at this point. This will include Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, several X-Men cast members, Fantastic Four ones, and so on and so forth. Wants to include almost every major character from every major Marvel film. Kang will have ravaged multiple dimensions at this point, and there will be a final stand against him. Now, this sounds awesome, but it also sounds way too good to be true. So what are your thoughts on that, Alex?
Well, with the Jackman thing, like, I know we were sitting here talking about like him coming back in Deadpool and that potentially being like, you know, a one and done thing for him where he comes back for one more movie and then he's like, I'm done, I'm out. So that would be really interesting. I would love to see him in Secret Wars, you know, come back. And I mean, this opens up the door to so many other franchises that we've already seen on movies. I mean, original Fantastic Four.
Yep.
You know, which is crazy. You know, there's so much they could do. They could pull so many different characters from so many places, honestly.
Coming here from the chat, Deadpool kills the Foxverse, which I could definitely see that as part of Deadpool 3.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, going on this rumor, you know, can we even see Wesley Snipes' Blade teaming up with Mahershala Ali's Blade as well in this film? If they're going to go through all those franchises, you know, bring everyone in. Don't just limit to the to the more recent stuff. You know, bring in Wesley Snipes' Blade, bring in the original Howard the Duck. You know, have him come through a portal. You know, even get Lou Ferrigno back in the paint as Hulk as well, as one of the variants. You know, if you're gonna go, you know, as big or bigger than Endgame, you got to bring everybody in.
Well, and the interesting thing here is you can kind of like break the fourth wall, if you will, here, because a lot of these people, their universes have already ended. Like, you know, like for their franchises, the universe is done. Like, they're not really going to ever really touch on that again. So, like, to pull them from a dead universe into like Secret Wars would be really interesting, because we don't have to like send them back and then, you know, do 3 more Blade movies with Wesley Snipes afterwards.
They could all die.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like they're expendable almost. Like, but
just think if we saw 3 Hulks, we saw Lou Ferrigno, we saw Edward Norton, and we saw Mark Ruffalo's Hulks all in the same film. That would be interesting.
That would be interesting.
From the chat here, only if we get Matt Slinger as Cap, maybe like Earth X Cap, since he's probably old as dirt now. Yep, and the original Spider-Man actor too, as well. You know, bring everybody. Like Wong says, you want it more? Yeah, we want more. If you're gonna do it, just do it. The other rumor from Secret Wars is that actor Jose Garcia will be playing the variant of Tony Stark Iron Man. And honestly, if you see the picture that I've seen with this rumor floating around, he looks a lot like Tony Stark. RDJ's Tony Stark from previous before. So they're going to get his likeness about it. I wish my wife, I'm like, does it look like RDJ's Iron Man? And she's tried to do like a triple take on me before she noticed the difference. So
that's funny. Well, the other weird thing to think about here too is, and I don't know why, but they probably will never bring this character back, but like using like Apocalypse from the X-Men movies, like that is the same actor that played in Moon Knight, you know? So they can actually double dip here a little bit, where they can get characters that these actors have maybe played before in other franchises and get them to, you know, be that role again.
You could have 2 Cyclopses. You could even have 2 Jean Greys. You could have 2 Storms, 2 Beasts. You know, it's the sky's the limit with this one.
Yeah, definitely.
From the chat, that's so insane to think about. So yeah, they could, you know, do all kinds of stuff if that rumor is true. Moving on to Spider-Man rumors. Marvel Studios. Oh, here we go. From the chat real quick. I love that. The idea of using people who kind of look alike to play variants is awesome instead of just the actual actor. I agree. You know, if you can find people that look a lot like him, or even their stunt doubles, maybe that could kind of like, think about Chris Evans' stunt double. If he doesn't want to come back for this, they could use him with the whole everything else on, and we could see some difference. But as long as he has the helmet on, what's the difference? You know, they could even use CGI if they wanted to, and deep fake type stuff. So
definitely.
But yeah, Spider-Man rumor. Reportedly is planning to focus on Venom's symbiote storyline after Spider-Man 4. So
that's interesting.
Yeah, so it would be interesting to see what Spider-Man 4 ends up being. We know with Holland's Parker losing MJ, losing Ned, you know, Aunt May has passed away. He's lost Happy. You know, what does that look like? And, you know, we saw him build his own suit. You know, what kind of slate he's going to be in, and what will be the story for Spider-Man 4, and what will be the villains in that one as well.
I wonder who will be mostly in charge of the story for that. I wonder if that's going to be like a Sony kind of led charge, because, you know, we did see it at the end of No Way Home that there was a little piece of the symbiote left in the MCU. So, I mean, they could take that and run with it. I mean, there's definitely like a little loose connection that we still have there that they could go back to if they choose to do so.
Yeah, that could possibly sounds like there's rumor that could be Spider-Man 5 or 6. Because you remember, Tom Holland apparently has that new deal with Sony and Marvel to do more films. And that's another Spider-Man trilogy, plus like Secret Wars and possibly Daredevil, and other appearances as well. So
yeah, and I wonder with that, like, I think they said mostly like movies was what that deal was about. So I mean, he could technically pop up in TV shows and other projects as well. And I mean, like you said, Daredevil would be perfect.
If we get a Young Avengers, you know, kind of similar to what we saw with him with him and Shield, and was it Agents of Smash or no? What was it?
The one with Luke Cage and White Tiger.
Yeah, where he's kind of leading them. We had Zabu and
Iron Fist.
Iron Fist. What's the Savage Land dude's name? I'm going blank now. Zabu's the tiger.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but he was in there too. Kazar and Zabu as well were in that, and he also had Amadeus Cho as the Iron Spider as well. So I believe that part of that was I think Taskmaster was trying to recruit some of them, because we also had Clark Cloak and Dagger as well as a part of that. So they could do Shield Academy, I think it was.
Oh, okay. Two different things.
Yeah, but they also had a couple of things there with Spider-Man in the cartoon, so they could go that route as well. If they wanted to do that, where he could lead the younger type of people in the MCU. Moving on to New World Order. There's a rumored General Ross description, character description floating around. And this says, the former Lieutenant General of the United States Army and Secretary of State, now President of the United States, using radiation siphon transform Ross into the Red Hulk. So that's interesting that they're talking about him being the president when we know that we're going to get a new president in Secret Wars, Secret Invasion, who could possibly be a Skrull himself. And I wonder if that leads the way to Ross becoming president after that.
Well, and another thing too was we just saw in She-Hulk that the Sokovia Accords have been abolished at this point and repealed. So, I mean, with that, he was kind of leading the charge on that, was he not? So, like, him to be president, I'm sure he wouldn't be too thrilled about that. You know?
Yeah, and also too, him being the Secretary of State, you know, there could be some succession line that happens in Secret Invasion, and that could pave the way for him becoming president. So that's interesting. Comment here about when I mentioned Cloak and Dagger, need an MCU version of Cloak and Dagger. Yes, I actually enjoyed the show on Hulu. If you haven't seen it, it's out there, and I actually love the interactions in the cartoons as well. Doctor Strange, you know, Dormammu ties, that kind of stuff, and yeah, so I would love to see them bring Cloak and Dagger back and have them in the MCU.
Definitely.
But back on New World Order. So yeah, that's interesting. You know, there could be some succession that happens in Secret Invasion, and that could pave the way for him becoming president. Not necessarily for him being winning an election, but a lot of succession happened if we have multiple Skrulls invading the leadership of the country. So that's interesting.
Imagine if they find out a Skrull is president or vice president or something like that. Like, it would be just like, boom, you know, mind blowing. Like, wow, like, how did that happen? Like, so.
From the chat, need to go watch that. Going to have to now. Yeah, definitely. It was on Freeform when it aired, but now it's out there on Hulu. So go ahead and check it out. I need to double check and see if it's on Disney Plus as well. It might be on Disney Plus also. I need to check, but it was on. You can watch it on Hulu. I know that. The other rumor is that basically Harrison Ford is set to play Red Hulk up until Avengers Secret Wars. So I wonder if that makes it to where something happens up until then. There's a change from Red Hulk to She-Red Hulk, possibly before that. But yeah, that's the rumor.
You think they'll do something where he's got something unique in his DNA that makes him
possibly
the Red Hulk kind of type? Because the Red Hulk's not the same as the Green Hulk. He's a little bit different. So maybe that's the reason for the change, and then they give it to his daughter, and then that's Red She-Hulk.
Bring Betty Ross back, or like I think you mentioned before, have Titania transform into Red She-Hulk, just from what we saw in She-Hulk as well.
And I think that would be so perfect with her because, I don't think we got enough of that little back and forth between her and She-Hulk. I would like to see more of it, and that would be her kind of like, hey, let me get an edge to go against She-Hulk. Like, let me fight fire with fire kind of type of thing.
From the chat, I wonder if Val gets him elected, which is a good comment, a good point too. Maybe something that she does. Maybe, they do some Winter Soldier type stuff. If the line of succession is not Skrulls, maybe they do some Winter Soldier type assassinations on leaders to get him into that spot of being the president. Because I think you have to, vice president and then is Secretary of State third succession, or is it Speaker of the House?
I think it's Secretary of State and then Speaker of the House. But I could be wrong on that. Could be wrong.
Yeah, so that's an interesting comment there, and maybe some meddling with Val. Some Black Panther news. Wakanda Forever title was originally meant for Black Panther 3. So producer Nate Moore says, that's right. You're like Kingdom of the Deep. You're like, does it have to be about Namor? Then we realized that Wakanda Forever felt right because it's a story about triumph through adversity. It's a story about legacy. It's a story about persistence. And Wakanda Forever is all those things. Initially, I will say this. At one point, it was like, oh, that feels like the title of the third movie. Where do you go from Wakanda Forever? That just feels like it's the end. But no, actually, it felt really appropriate thematically to the story we were trying to tell. So.
Interesting.
Yeah. Angela Bassett was against. Okay, so are we at the spoiler ban yet?
No, I think we're until the 25th on that.
Okay, so I'm going to say something here. So briefly, skip past this on the recording. If you're watching this live, put your earmuffs on. In 3, 2, 1, spoiler alert. Angela Bassett was against the death of Ramonda. She said, I objected. Yeah, I was like, Ryan, what are you doing? Why? You will rule the day. You will rule the demise of Ramonda. People are going to be so upset. He was like, Angela, I know. But look, to die is not really to die in this world. It doesn't really have to mean that.
I mean, we just saw that happen with Killmonger. Killmonger died, and we just saw like him also in this movie. So, it doesn't really mean that we'll never see her again. Plus, we have the multiverse. So,
we're past the spoiler alert for that piece. There's gonna be one more. I'll tell you to put earmuffs on for. But Winston Duke did address on recast T'Challa. He said there's no way they'll never remake Black Panther in the future. There's no way that saga and interpretation of T'Challa, King of Wakanda, will end. He is canon, so trust that it will come. But allow Black Panther Wakanda Forever to be a human experience. So I feel as is the decision that's been made to keep T'Challa, Chad Boseman's T'Challa, is one that has a lot of nobility in it. But you also have to, this level of trust that I think we should all have for the comic book world last. For a comic book world that has multiple dimensions and parallel dimensions and multiple stories and possible futures and possible reimaginations in the past. Just multiple universes that they're actually experimenting with. So feel my level of trust is that the medium can support a diversity of interpretations that can actually make us all happy. So.
Yeah, I mean, and we go right back to the multiverse thing. I mean, they can always just bring somebody in from the multiverse if they want to do that. But I mean, they don't need to recast somebody right now.
Yep. Like Andy has said, an incursion happens, he's lost his world. We lost our T'Challa, similar to Black Widow and What If. That's the both worlds right there.
Yep.
From the chat about the spoiler, I think it did need to happen, but don't want to say why, because spoilers, I think it was right. So, yep. And we can discuss in the spoiler thread on that one, or we can discuss it another time. Production designer Hannah Beachler on Namor's throne. She actually had a pretty nice tweet thread about some of the designs and the set stuff and all the stuff on Twitter. But this one stood out to me. Namor's throne seat, a Megalodon jaw with jade teeth. The hieroglyph carved in the bone reads, the jade tooth bites. I thought it was charming and dangerous like Namor. The piece was 12 feet tall by 10 feet wide. It was big.
Wow.
Yep.
That's awesome. I think that's one of the best visual shots in this movie is that scene where he goes down on the throne that's in the trailers and you see that massive shark mouth just wide open that he sits on, very cool.
One more spoiler alert here. So earmuffs, and if you're listening to the replay, 3, 2, 1. Winston Duke confirms M'Baku has taken a larger role at the end of Wakanda Forever. He said, yeah, it's kind of cool, revealed as the King of Wakanda at the end of the movie. That's huge. So whatever that entails, it's going to be a fun one. So, yeah, I'm interested to see where that goes in the future with him because, spoiler ban's over. Or spoiler warning's over for that piece. But he did get a rework contract from what I read for this, and he got more money. And so, interesting to see what will be the bigger role he plays in the future.
I mean, we're supposed to get a couple of spinoff shows, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. At least 2 on Disney Plus, and they were talking about more last week we talked about on the news. So
I'm sure he'll be in those if he's going to be king. So, be interesting to see what they do there.
Wakanda Forever maybe getting a longer release and not have the usual Disney Plus release at 45 days like other projects. So they're going to be in the theater longer than before. Catching up on the chat here. One coming here. I love with his throne. So yes, agreed about Namor's throne. And then on the decision with M'Baku we discussed, a good decision with M'Baku. I agree as well. Who does not want more Winston Duke? Sorry, alert on my watch, making sure it was something I need to pay attention to. Ironheart, which we know that Ironheart is going to be a direct sequel to Wakanda Forever. Dominique Thorne, who plays Riri, received advice from Robert Downey Jr. I wasn't able to speak with RDJ before we got into filming or anything, but right toward the conclusion of the film, I actually had a chance to speak with him through FaceTime. A castmate over on Ironheart actually done a show with him and connected us. he had some beautiful words to say about how much he believes that Riri Williams is and should always be her own person, her own thing. That his legacy is headed in the right direction, and all the beautiful, encouraging things that you hope to hear from the Iron Man himself. So it sounds like she has his seal of approval with that. So
That's awesome. I love RDJ. He's always like, what is the word I'm looking for here? I guess very supportive of people like that in the MCU and stuff like that. And you always hear him talking about like when people are like, "Oh, please come back" and stuff, and he's kind of, I'm good, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, we've got new people there now that are taking a lot of new roles, a lot of new characters coming in. Like, I don't really need to come back. So maybe one day he will, but I love how he still supports actors and actresses in the MCU.
There's a parallel too with her comic book origins too, because she was taking Stark Tech, making her own suits, and him and Stark Industries and Pepper kind of helped her out after that. So kind of a parallel there in real life and in the comics there between the two. And now we know that Shuri is going to be the surrogate for Tony Stark and Wakanda in the MCU. But there was some things in the film that she was already doing stuff before she got involved with Wakanda. And so interesting to see what she'll be doing in her show and how the events of Wakanda Forever impact her going forward.
Which, interestingly enough, Tony Stark, comes and finds Peter Parker, and he's like talking about like how he's seen these videos of him on YouTube and stuff like that. And in Wakanda Forever, Riri actually mentions that, like, "Oh, are you talking about all those videos of
Yeah.
me doing stuff on YouTube?" And I was like, it's so funny. Like, it's almost like I almost feel like, Tony's probably like been keeping an eye on her in the MCU as well. So, like, you never know.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I wonder if any role will be played with Stark Industries in Ironheart at all, now that she's, after post Wakanda Forever.
You could very well just have Tony Stark in the background, not actually be a character in the MCU anymore, but Stark Industries just like exists to send out protocols for people that he's had an eye on for a while, that he thinks are going to be exceptional people and be like the leaders of, that what the world needs like in the future in the MCU. So
yeah, but on that note too, it's gonna make you wonder after Spider-Man No Way Home, with everything with Peter Parker and being tied to Stark Industries with Mysterio and that kind of stuff, what impact does Department of Damage Control have on Stark Industries? Does Happy and Pepper pull things back? Do they try to dismantle some of those protocols too? So that's also an interesting angle as well, with the fallout from No Way Home.
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, it seems like there's a big shakeup of a lot of organizations in the MCU that's happening right now.
Yep.
So, I guess the field will definitely look different. I mean, we've seen things like Kang Enterprises in the Loki show where like that was a background piece, but that was like on an Avengers Tower.
Yep.
And we know Avengers Tower was sold, which I don't know if we know who that was confirmed.
Then we do. So it could be Baxter Building. It could be, Kang Enterprises, or that could be way in the future. We know it's not going to be Osborn because Osborn's on the MCU.
So, I mean, there's no telling what the future kind of looks like on that battlefront, of companies and everything. I mean, we could even see Hammer come back. And, that would be a really interesting thing that they could do.
Yeah, I keep wondering if Hammer will be the surrogate for Osborn in the MCU, and that Justin Hammer gets out of jail and gets back into those ways. So that could be interesting for Armor Wars too, as well, or even post Secret Invasion, because we know that's where that kind of made the rise of Osborn in the comics. With Thunderbolts and other things. Could that kind of be, like I said, Hammer and him having a tie in the Thunderbolts or another team and so forth? So that'll be interesting.
I mean, they could even just go, hey, like Justin Hammer is the one that creates the device that helps everybody figure out who's a Skrull or not. And that would just bring him like right back into the fold, like instantly.
Yeah. I mean, that's the way to get out of jail.
Yeah.
So, Thunderbolts news. This one's gonna be a lot of rumors here. But David Harbour, who plays Red Guardian, he did have some comments. He talks about them being losers. He said, "We're like losers," which I like. We're like, the losers. I think it's fun to watch us just mess everything up. I think that's the spectrum. I think it's very funny, but there's also a lot of pathos in that. There's a lot of drama and a bunch of people that just keep getting their lives wrong, and because of character flaws, keep messing things up. And nobody gives them the respect they do to Captain America and Iron Man. Very capable people. So there's a lot to draw on there. There's a lot of movie that'll be fun, which is interesting, because two of the people in that lineup kind of redeem themselves in a way. Bucky, number one, with his deprogramming, what we saw with him in Infinity War and Endgame, what we saw in Falcon and Winter Soldier, that's a weird statement to say for Bucky. The other one was Yelena, because after she, with Black Widow and how that ended, and then her going out and curing other Black Widows who were basically had mind control. And then we saw where she left with Hawkeye at the end of that fight between her and Hawkeye in the Hawkeye series. Those two don't seem like they're messing up anymore, unless there's more there with Yelena and Val. But with Bucky, I don't see it. I almost see him being like a reluctant team member for this.
Yeah, and I feel like he's going to be trying to take like a back seat, and people are probably going to want him to take more of a leadership role. And the issue here is he's going to have John Walker and Red Guardian, and John Walker is like a loose cannon, and Red Guardian's doing whatever. But then you've also got Yelena, who is like Red Guardian's daughter, So I almost feel like there's going to be something that happens in this where somebody dies and it kind of like pulls somebody together. And I almost feel like it would be like a Red Guardian, because it's going to hit Yelena hard. It's going to be like one of those things where Bucky's going to be like, wow, I can't believe I just like let this happen on my watch type of thing. And then he's going to beat himself up about it. John Walker is going to lose his mind because now he's going to see like, somebody just like killed the super soldier, like no problem. And it's just going to be like a big mess, but maybe it'll like pull everybody together.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think this is Andy from the chat here. I think he's watching. He says, "Hey guys, hope you're having a good show. Sorry I couldn't make it." I think that's Andy. If I had to guess. He also, David Harbour also talked about the ending of Phase 5. He says, "I know we go to work next year. I have not read this script, but I have been told the arc of the story and how the story goes. And apparently we'll be reading a script very soon." Yep, it is Andy in the chat, by the way. But it's cool. It's very unique. And also it has all this cool action and cool comedy from what has been described to me. And there is a bomb drop thing that we add to the universe, which this could be the rumor that I'll address here shortly, which will be very exciting for the movie to do at the end of this particular phase, whatever that we're ending. So that's interesting. So here's the bomb drop. Go ahead before I get to the bomb drop rumors.
I was just going to say, like, could we see like the Thunderbolts be like this revolving door, and we see like, I think it would be so interesting if like Ross is president, and also Red Hulk, but nobody knows that he's Red Hulk out there doing Thunderbolts things, and then all of a sudden like he's just like president, and nobody knows that the two are actually the same person, kind of type of thing, and not even the members of the Thunderbolts know that he's like a Thunderbolt. So they could like eventually just keep pulling more people into the Thunderbolts, and they could kill them off, or just like kind of put them on ice or put them on the shelf for a little while.
Change the roster out. Maybe discover Songbirds. Some other ones. Who's the big dude? Not Goliath, but the other big dude that they had in the team. They gave like Bullseye. They could bring in as well. I can't remember the other one, but I know there's a Goliath and there's a big guy they brought in also. I'm going blank on that right now.
Yeah, and I mean that's a team. The Thunderbolts has changed so many times. There's been so many iterations of that team that they could do, so many different characters that they could bring in for that. So
here's the first big rumor bomb drop. Thunderbolts will be going to Savage Land in search of anti-metal and cross paths with Kazar and Zabu.
Anti-metal.
Yeah, so anti-metal being, the other piece of vibranium, which we know that, here from the chat real quick. They agree with you. They say, yes, Alex, love the idea that Ross is high up, but nobody knows Red Hulk. He's Red Hulk. Yep. That's it from Andy. Signed AS. That must be Andy. But yeah, so anti-metal, we knowing, I guess I can't, we're under spoiler still, so I won't go into who's looking for vibranium also, but that could tie into that. But I don't see the Thunderbolts taking out Kazar and Zabu on his territory, because Kazar is basically, if you take a super soldier plus Kraven the Hunter and put them into one person, that's basically Kazar, and he can talk to animals too. So I don't see what their lineup, unless they bring somebody else into the fold, how they can go against Khazar and Zabu in the Savage Land.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like maybe Taskmaster might be like one of the best ones there to like be able to like kind of like, almost like in a combative situation. But I feel like everybody except for Bucky on the super soldier front is probably not going to do well in that fight, at all. And Yelena, I don't think she's going to do well. And Ghost will probably sit on the sidelines and watch everything that's happening, and go intangible. But
yeah, Ghost just go incognito and pretty much be the one that survives. Just phase shift and you can't see me doing the John Cena thing to everybody else. So more to the rumor though, Squadron Supreme will also make their MCU debut. So it almost sounds like this will have a multiverse tie-in. And they won't be from 616, the main MCU universe that was said to be. From the chat here from Andy as well. I think we're going to be getting a Siege adaptation with Val gets the Thunderbolts to try and attack Occupy Wakanda. And that could be it. Especially once they get anti-metal. If they get that from the Savage Land and, maybe they end up recruiting Khazar and Zabu maybe. Maybe they end up recruiting the Squadron Supreme for that. But yeah, because from the rumor, it sounds like they're going to end up crossing paths with Squadron Supreme in Savage Land. So
could we, I mean, if you said that they wouldn't be from 616, right?
Yep.
So,
multiverse.
I mean, could they be like a displaced multiverse, like in another universe? They didn't have the Avengers, but they had the Squadron Supreme.
Yep.
Yeah. And, I don't remember what cartoon it was, but they have that cartoon where it was like the Avengers were the bad guys, where like the things got flipped. And I think the Squadron Supreme were like the Avengers in that like fake reality. That's just kind of what I'm thinking there.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
More rumor for this is that casting hints at evil inspired Superman villain type. A new rumor is making the circles that they are currently trying to cast the main antagonist for the upcoming Thunderbolts film, who is hinting at being an evil Superman. What makes this interesting is that there are two characters that could potentially take on the very role, with Squadron Supreme's Hyperion, a more direct parallel to the Justice League Superman, or the other powered individual known as Sentry. I don't think it's a Sentry. This could be a Hyperion. So think that we get, going with the other rumor, Squadron Supreme is showing up. Maybe the rest of them are good, but Hyperion's like, no, I'm not with this, and he's end up the bad guy, and this all goes down in Savage Land.
But doesn't Sentry get his powers from like a jacked up super soldier serum?
I believe he does.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I think that would be like kind of an interesting thing here if maybe they take like, I mean, we have quite a few super soldiers that we've seen now that have been super soldiers for a long time and stuff. Maybe somebody like takes like Red Guardians, Bucky's, Steve Rogers, like all their DNAs and makes some special super soldier serum or something. And
that could,
gives it to the Sentry.
So it could be Sentry, and maybe the Squadron Supreme as himself teams up with the Thunderbolts, and they, and that kind of stuff, and they all go against Sentry because that would be a tall task to take on with Sentry.
I mean, that's one of those things where, like, if he is on a super soldier serum, it'd be like, yeah, we got all these super soldiers, but we've got this one that's like, unstoppable.
Yep.
Basically. So,
from the chat, I thought Hyperion myself. Another from the chat says, yes, come on, give me Squadron Supreme project where they're all heroes and the Avengers are villains. And then good shout, Alex didn't think about that. So a lot of good stuff in the comments here. Keep it coming from the chat. Good stuff. The other part of this rumor, it says that the Marvel is already eyeing the casting of Ryan Gosling or Alexander Skarsgård. So I could see Alexander Skarsgård as Sentry. I could see Ryan Gosling as Hyperion.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. Ryan Gosling is Hyperion.
Yeah.
And plus, that's one of those characters that, like, I feel like a lot of like fans that aren't maybe as big into Marvel who may not know who Hyperion is, like, would have him step into that role, and they would be like, "Oh, I love Ryan Gosling." And it would be like a nice little pair that they can do there. And
that arrogance that kind of Hyperion has, and that kind of stuff, and just how he's like, I could see Ryan Gosling do that. Now, if you do this, I know this isn't Tony Masters Taskmaster. I know this isn't what we want with Taskmaster. But if you're going to have Hyperion and he's the villain, and you have the Thunderbolt and they have Taskmaster, at least give me a good fight like the latest comic run between Taskmaster and Hyperion. I would love to see on the big screen. I don't care if it's Dreykov's daughter, Antonia. Just show me Taskmaster in that rope-a-dope fight. I would, you could redeem Taskmaster for me in the MCU if you give me that rope-a-dope fight between Hyperion and Taskmaster, just like in the comic book run that we have recently, because that fight is probably one of my best fights I love with Taskmaster in the comic books that he's gone up against.
Definitely. I mean, they definitely need to do something different there. And I mean, since they've made Taskmaster more robot than power, I guess, because she's more of a machine now.
Protocol droid, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, I mean, it would be definitely interesting to see something like that happen if they chose.
Yeah. And now that the protocol is a protocol and that she's free of the mind control, I wonder if that chip can still do stuff or what she will be going forward now that she's free of her dad's mind control.
Yeah.
That's it for Thunderbolts. Let's move on to Daredevil news. So Daredevil, there's a rumor that Daredevil Born Again will likely be TVMA, which is the equivalent of R-rated on TV. So, that's interesting.
I've been seeing him do like a lot more trainings with like MMA style stuff, and I think that's great because I didn't realize that I guess maybe he didn't do as much of it when he did the Netflix shows, but I thought he did really well with a lot of the fight stuff in that. So, for him to actually like go and be doing like a little bit more on the MMA stuff and learning how to like fight a little bit more and learning where to, put kicks and stuff. Thought that was really cool. It seems like he's really, really into coming back and getting his own show again.
Yep. I'm looking forward to it. All 18 episodes of it.
Yeah.
Deborah Ann Wall says she is not part of Daredevil at this time. She says, I can say this, they have not called me yet. So as of now, I'm not a part of it. I would be thrilled to be part of it. They know where I am. Like I said, I love the character Karen Page. I love telling that story. I feel like I have more to say, but it is up to them what kind of story they want to tell. So we also have a rumor here. So the rumor is that for a while now that John Bernthal's Punisher will be returning. But there's a new rumor that we're going to get White Tiger in this series as well.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
That's awesome. That was one of my favorite parts of that animated show with Spider-Man that they did was when they brought White Tiger in. And because like that's that there's been a few White Tigers. It's a mantle kind of type thing. It's something that's passed down. So they can definitely, they can choose what they want to do there too.
I'm interested.
So.
Yeah, interested to see what they do if they make her a teenager, if they go her older, do they bring Jessica Henwick in as White Tiger? Or do they cast somebody else? Because she said she wanted to return. Does she come back as Colleen Wig and be in the Iron Fist? Or could they possibly make her White Tiger in the MCU?
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
That they've got tons of options that they could do with that character because, like I said, it's like a mantle. It's been passed down. So
I could see probably being a teenager, and that way they could cross that over or make that bridge between Daredevil and Spider-Man with that too as well as another option. Like maybe he meets her in college, maybe. So they could do a lot of things that way. From the chat, super happy about the Punisher. So yep, we all are. John Bernthal killed that role.
Yeah, he did.
Blade rumors, or Blade news. The Walking Dead, Ant-Man and the Wasp, Birch henchman actor Joshua McHale has reportedly joined the cast of the film. This screams Hannibal King. The way he looks, the way he is, it does scream Hannibal King to me. I don't know why, it just does.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Unless they make him somebody else, or Deacon Frost, or
I'm not really sure on that one, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, I'm curious, but I would really be interested to see what he ends up being like as a role.
Yeah. Something to keep an eye on. Speaking of that side of the universe, We're By Night news. Laura Donnelly is ready for more. She said, yes, certainly the thing that I love about this particular story for Elsa is that we get such a sense that we're only at the beginning of something for her. She's not introduced as the character that we know from the comics. It's her that, or maybe she has been that and something has happened. We don't know. And so it does feel like it's the only little teaser, or only this little teaser or taster of many, many layers that are underneath in a huge backstory. And any opportunity to explore or follow up, I would leap at. And I would love also to explore the relationship between Elsa and Jack as well. That's just one that is touched on, and you see the beginning of something blossoming, and we don't know what that is. And I love working with Gail. I would be very, very happy to. And then she goes, just call me. So interesting to see where they go after Werewolf by Night. You know, we know there's the Remand thing special coming. Do they bring back, you know, Jack and Elsa for that? Do we see Elsa cross over into Blade maybe? You know, Moon Knight, you know.
I mean, they sort of hinted that she had been, you know, like off doing her own thing, like
Yep.
she kind of like snuck away. Kind of makes me think that maybe it's like that Bruce Wayne thing, like he disappears and she goes off and like learns a bunch of different techniques, fighting styles, how to fight certain creatures and stuff. So I mean, she could definitely just pop back up as a monster hunter, you know, somewhere else down the line. They could give her a big story too in the MCU.
They could also make it too that she was watching the whole thing during Moon Knight happen. You know, with the whole thing with Stephen Grant and I'm going blank on Moon Knight alter egos right now.
Oh, Stephen Grant,
Mark Spector and Mark
Foster.
Mark Spector, and she could have been watching the whole thing happen too as well. You know,
Yeah.
she could have been over at the same time, so they could do some things like that where she was just watching and sitting back, or who knows. So yeah. Darcy Lewis makes her first ever Marvel Comics appearance in the new Scarlet Witch series. So she was a new character that we got introduced to, and now she's actually part of comics now. Kind of interesting. Did the same thing with Harley from Iron Man 3 as well. He was a new character. He wasn't in the comics, but now he's comics canon now. So interesting they're doing that with her. Yep. Wonder Man. It does sound like Bob Odenkirk will be the main villain in Wonder Man.
Be the villain.
Yep.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yep. So that's what we're seeing on that one. More details probably pop out. I know they said that they're also Courtney Cox is rumored to be in that series as well. So interesting how that's going to shape up when we start getting more info or even a trailer or any synopsis on that story.
Now, will Bob Odenkirk supposedly still be his agent or whatever?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So
that'll be interesting. It'd be like somebody close to him is the villain. So
that is though. Look at you know a lot of these films.
yeah.
Power Pack, which I had no idea this was in development, but it is no longer in active development. Shang-Chi producer,
Either.
yeah. Shang-Chi producer Jonathan Short said it's one of those things that we look at and talk about every once in a while. We'll probably get there eventually, but it's not something super active at the moment. So that's interesting. I had no idea that there was Power Pack was even in the mix. So Spider-Man animated series. So there's been some rumors going around that this doesn't look good, especially for a second series. There's been some layoffs and some changes at Marvel Studios on the animation side, but some news has kind of, you know, put some more context to what's going on. So it is set to premiere at some point in 2024, with fall 2024 being likely. But before moving forward with Spider-Man sophomore year, Marvel Studios will seek to gauge the interest from audiences worldwide regarding the show. This is part of the reason why most of the crew is currently being let go as of now. Depending on how popular the series becomes, and if it becomes more considerable success than its predecessors, then Marvel could reevaluate going forward with the second season or not. There is also a factor of budget cuts currently taking place at Marvel Studios, and not just in terms of animation. So it sounds like this is one of those things we're just going to wait and see. You know, is the juice worth more of the squeeze? You know, after season 1 of freshman year.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I'm not sure. I mean, how animated stuff, because it's fully animated, right? There's no crossovers or anything that's been talked about or anything.
I'm not even sure what universe that show's going to be in, because Osborn's going to be in it. There's other characters in there like Vulture and Doctor Strange. It's like, after No Way Home, how's this going to work?
It's almost like a weird what if kind of like spin on Spider-Man. So who knows?
So yeah. Agatha, Agent Covenant of Chaos. excuse me. The show is set to be a continuation of WandaVision, with Agatha being freed from Wanda's spell by a new coven of witches. Billy will attend. This is Billy Kaplan, so this is the person who's going to be Wiccan. Billy Kaplan will attend a school in Westview and be a person of interest for the coven. It also sounds like Aubrey Plaza's character will be one of the witches in the coven / another evil person alongside Agatha as well.
So we're gonna get like probably like a coven of like 2 or 3 witches roll into town and free Agatha. Could these be people that maybe she knew before? Somebody maybe that were friends, allies. Maybe they could be enemies.
Yep.
You know. But so the weirdest part there is talking about how Billy will be going to a school in Westview, which
Yes. So Billy Kaplan is basically in the comics. He takes like the soul of the original Billy Wiccan, yeah, and becomes Wiccan. So I wonder if that has to do with the witches and what they're doing. Maybe as a way after what happened with the events of WandaVision as Agatha to get more back at Scarlet Witch at Wanda. So interesting how they'll play that out.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Yeah. Producer Nate Moore talked about on when MCU will end. In an interview, he says, I think it can go for a long time. I think we have to continue to. We can't sit back on our laurels. We can't think we have the answers. We have to continue to push the envelope as far as genre and what we're willing to explore. But to me, Marvel movies are just movies. Our source material it'd be like saying, hey, our movies about books going to go on forever. Probably. We have a lot of great stuff in the pipeline and stuff, honestly, we can't find room for. One of the great things about Disney Plus was that we did tell stories that were like, I don't know if we're going to be able to tell that story. And now we're like, oh, we have another outlet because we don't want to make 10 movies a year. That's going to be bad. Moon Knight, for instance, we've been talking about Moon Knight for a long time and just couldn't get on the slate because there's too much stuff. But all of a sudden we have a secondary outlet where we could tell 6 hours of a cool Moon Knight story that otherwise doesn't exist. And I think there are a lot of properties that we haven't had a chance to tell. So I think it can go on for a while, for a long time. We certainly don't feel like we're done. So I'll hear from the chat. Someone goes, hey, this is a good excuse to be late for the show. You know, if you're watching Wakanda Forever again, yeah, that's the best reason to be late. So don't worry about that from the chat. But yeah, so it sounds like, you know, I agree with him. You know, just doing movies only was hard to do and tell these stories. Disney Plus gave them that avenue, and hopefully we'll see more special presentations. Maybe they'll pick and choose what shows to put into series. But I feel like we're going to get a lot of stuff in the special presentation route as introductions, short stories, that kind of stuff, before they make, you know, full-fledged Disney Plus series.
Definitely. And I mean, there's a lot of characters that we're seeing that are getting shows or are rumored to get shows or are in the pipeline to get a show or a movie or some type of project, just really in general, that you would have 10 years ago not expected to see getting a TV show or a movie or a project or whatever. And I think a lot of that has to do with, like, you know, we kind of started with like the tip of the iceberg with the MCU in the beginning, and they've given us so many more great characters that now, like, we've got all these, it's like a never ending story is what I'm trying to get to, basically. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like, they could keep telling stories for decades if they wanted to, you know.
There's so much content they can pull from the comic books and
definitely
multiverse and reshape things and, you know, change things up. So definitely from the chat, cool, can't wait. So where can we? Silk Spider Society. This is on Amazon. Yes, it's on Amazon with Sony. The Walking Dead's Angela Kang is now overseeing the project. This news marks the first official confirmation from Amazon that the retail giant and streamer is working with Sony on a slate of Marvel original TV series, with Silk being the first. New Spider-Man TV universe on Amazon is coming. So Sony's teaming up with Amazon to basically have their own TV shows, which I don't know why they don't just do that with Disney Plus and Marvel as part of their ongoing things they're working on. But I guess they probably want more of the take from Amazon, or they want to stand out. So Amazon it is.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon did The Boys, so, you know, hopefully we don't get something as gruesome as that. But I mean, Amazon makes good shows though.
Yep,
Uh,
and
so
they're afraid to push the envelope. So
yeah, and I think that'll be more to Sony's benefit than, probably them doing it all by themselves. So
yep. Deadpool news. Rumor Ryan Reynolds has talked to Channing Tatum about being in Deadpool 3, and this screams Gambit.
Mhm.
Because he had that project coming. There's all that stuff with him being cast as Gambit, the art and that kind of stuff.
And he
I don't know.
that.
Yeah, he wanted to be Gambit too. So if Ryan Reynolds is pulling Channing Tatum to Deadpool 3, this has to be Gambit. I don't see any other role. Unless
Mhm.
it's just Channing Tatum as himself, like we see Kevin Bacon in the Garden Tardy special.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't know. I mean, I would hope that they would bring him in as Gambit. I mean,
Yeah.
they could definitely do with talks of the TVA and stuff like that. I mean, you could see Deadpool all over the multiverse in
Yep.
Deadpool 3. So,
Maybe he rescues Gambit.
yeah, maybe
Yeah.
maybe he killed Gambit,
Mhm.
like, I would hope that wouldn't happen and we would get to see him as Gambit just like as a one and done type of situation. That would stink, but
Yeah.
yeah, you never know.
There's also a casting call, excuse me, that sounds like this is a hint at the villain of the movie. It does seem like that they're seeking to add a female villain who will face off against both in the upcoming film, both being Wolverine and Deadpool. Marvel Studios is looking for someone in the range of 30 to 50 for the role. So this is interesting too. But remember when Ryan Reynolds first did the teaser and he's on the toilet and the comic he's reading? The comic he's reading is basically iconic X-Men villain Danger.
Hmm.
So, and Danger basically was the physical embodiment of a training room known as the Danger Room, and she became a massive threat to mutants.
Mhm.
So this does sound like Danger will be the villain of Deadpool, because if they're looking for a female, go back to when he's on the toilet with that comic book.
Mhm.
That could have been a huge clue right there. And just looking around, everyone's saying Danger is coming. So
Mhm.
it sounds like Danger will be the villain of Deadpool 3.
That's interesting. I mean, that kind of like it's kind of similar to what we saw in Deadpool 2 with, what's his name? Cable showing
Yep.
up, like trying to prevent something from happening. I mean, maybe Danger is one of those things where it's like a dystopian future kind of type thing, or maybe, I mean, they could even tie that to the TVA,
Yep.
like make it as a part of the TVA if they chose to do so. So from another universe or something, they pulled this thing in and yeah.
The other news here is that the working title of the film is no longer Deadpool 3, but rather Untitled Deadpool and Wolverine film.
Mhm.
So it sounds like Hugh Jackman will have a huge role in this film if it's going to be a Deadpool and Wolverine film instead of just Deadpool 3.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it's so crazy. They can go so many different directions with this Deadpool 3 movie. It is unreal.
Also, Ryan Reynolds has a written Christmas movie that was never made for Deadpool. He said 4 years ago, Rhett Reese, Paul Wernick, and I wrote a Christmas movie starring Deadpool, but it got lost in the shuffle of Disney acquiring Fox and never got made. Maybe one day we'll get to make that movie. It's not a musical, but it's a full Deadpool Christmas movie. So one day.
Special presentation. That would
Yep.
be perfect for that. Cut some stuff out.
Yep.
Make it a special presentation.
And so comments here, wow, that's crazy. This is Deadpool 3 comments. Also, I just can't wait for that one. So I'm looking forward to it as well. Moving on to Armor Wars. Nate Moore on Armor Wars being too big for Disney Plus. Remember now, they shipped the Disney Plus from Disney Plus series to being a movie. And so he made some comments on that. He said, yeah, I mean, in that case, there were some great ideas that were coming out for that show, but that, to be quite honest, felt too big for that show. Kind of both, kind of conceptually, and from our Disney Plus shows are awesome and we love them, but the budgets are not the same as the features. That's not secret. And when you're talking about a show that wants to be about seeing all the cool armors and Don Cheadle interacting with all those armors, the legacy of Tony Stark, that became cost prohibitive to do as a show. And we realized as a feature, not only can we get into some of the beautiful imagery that is from publishing, and there's certainly an Armor Wars run, but there's also ways then to leverage the ideas of that movie that affect other movies down the line. So it becomes a multiplication really of once you figure out what is cool about something. So it sounds like it's bigger than it could be. We know that Armor Wars is going to be a follow up to Secret Invasion. I wonder if that still is going to be the case with it going to a movie. But it does sound like they'll be pulling from the Armor Wars run, comic run. And they're going to be doing a lot of things bigger, and it's going to have impact down the line. So definitely something to keep an eye on as more information comes out about Armor Wars. I'm excited for it. So,
and in Iron Man 2, we also saw Tony Stark basically show like a bunch of other nations that were trying to replicate his technology, and he said that was like 10 years out. So, you know, like we're about at that time where other countries would start having that sort of tech, and I'm sure it would come out in a war against Skrulls, you know, like if they choose to do so. So,
yep, exactly. Guardians Holiday Special. James Gunn has shut down Silver Surfer rumors. So just to clarify what's going on here is that media has already seen the Guardian special. There's been good reviews on it. There were some things floating out there that Silver Surfer was going to show up in the post credits. But James Gunn basically said people were tweeting about it. He responded to a tweet saying it's false about it being a post credit scene surprise. Which I love about James Gunn because he's not afraid to respond to people and call them out and address things on social media, especially Twitter. He also addressed when he'll be done with Marvel. People were tweeting at him for still working with Marvel while now being head of DC. So basically, like people like, you're working for DC now. Why are you still working for Marvel? And he went out and made a comment on Twitter about this. He said, as was made clear in all press until May, I am both DC and Marvel. I have dedicated the majority of the past 10 years of my life to the Guardians trilogy, and I'm not abandoning them or the thousands of people who worked on them at the 11th hour. The world won't end if you love both, which is a great thing because he could just say, you know what, I'm head of DC now, I'm done. But he's, you know, his last 10 years, 3 Guardians movies, you know, their appearance in other films, the special, you know, he is not just going to, you know, leave him high and dry and just say, you know what, I'm done. He's doing the right thing here. He's, you know, he's being, you know, honorable about what he's worked on, wants to see that come to an end, and then he'll be on DC. Because people are going at him on Twitter because he's right now he's actively promoting the holiday special right now on Twitter, and people are going at him.
Yeah, well, I mean, even Feige has come out and said, you know, like in an interview where he, I think, said the exact same thing. Like, we're not done with him until May. Like, you know, like we're like he's got more work that he's got to do with us, like that we've had in the pipeline forever. You know, like so that's one of those things where he's gonna finish what he started. He's not just gonna just drop it and walk away. I mean, it just doesn't work that way. So
Chris Hemsworth news. He is taking a break from Thor in acting after finding out that he has genes that could lead to Alzheimer's disease. And honestly, as someone who's recently lost my mother in the past couple of years to Alzheimer's disease, I completely get it why he's doing this. But the news is during an episode of Death and Facing Your Own Mortality, made me go, and he's doing that Limitless show on Disney Plus. Made me go, oh God, I'm not ready to go yet. I want to sit and be in this space with a greater sense of stillness and gratitude. And then you start talking about kids and family and going, oh my God, they're getting older. They're growing up. And I keep slapping another movie on top of another movie. Before you know it, they're 18. They moved out of the house and I missed the window somehow. It really triggered something in me to want to take some time off. And since we finished the show, I've been completing the things I was already contracted to do. Now, when I finish this tour this week, I'm going to go home. I'm going to have a good chunk of time off and just simplify. Be with the kids and be with my wife. He told Vanity Fair that he's completely open to reprising his role as Thor in the MCU. He said that if he returned, Marvel would probably have to close the book on that character, which I completely understand. You know, you find out that you have genes that can drastically alter your life and lose who you are and, you know, forget the people that you loved. That, you know, if you're predisposed to that, you want to make sure that you're spending that quality time with them. He has kids. He has 3 kids. You know, he's been doing a lot with you know, filming wise with this and other projects. So I definitely can see why, you know, he wants to make his family first and important. I will say this, if he, you know, when he does come back to coming back as Thor. I could see it as cameos. I don't think we'll see another Thor movie. I think it's gonna be more cameos and team ups in other films. One thing they could potentially do though is when he's done with Thor, they could pass the mantle and probably bring in Beta Ray Bill at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, Thor is one of those characters that unless he dies, like he lives thousands of years, so it doesn't really just like make sense for Thor to just kind of just, not be there one day.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, just he could definitely keep playing Thor for the next 30 years, and then he could be like an old King Thor, like
Yep.
old Rune King Thor or whatever, and that would be awesome. And he could, kind of play variants. He could do whatever. But yeah, I mean, they don't have to like kill his character off.
The one thing they could also do too, thinking of what we saw in the post credits scene for Love and Thunder, is that now that we have Hercules in the MCU, Hercules could be like the next Thor type in the MCU while we have a King Thor. So basically, we see Hercules, we see a mashup of Hercules and Thor, where Hercules has, he has his own, of course, abilities and that kind of stuff, but maybe he becomes like a surrogate for Thor in the MCU, while Thor is just more of a king type Thor person.
Yeah, that would be interesting. And I mean,
Like Thor becomes All Father.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, we know that if he became the All Father, like imagine, I know this sounds weird, but then maybe Hercules attacks Asgard, maybe Valkyrie dies, like Thor has to step back into like, more of like being like the king of Asgard kind of again.
Yeah.
Because it's left without a leader kind of type of thing. There's so much they could do there, honestly.
So yeah, so something to keep an eye on how they deal with that. Like I said, they can make a Thor 4, have an all out war between Olympus and Asgard and New Asgard.
Or Thor
When
5.
or Thor 5, I'm sorry. When the dust settles, Hercules kind of the new champion for Asgard, after maybe Olympus gets decimated, as a thing. Hercules is the new champion for Asgard, and Thor, All Father King Thor, and all that kind of stuff. So, and then from there is just cameos for Thor. He pops up, Hemba pops up, maybe working like in minimum work he has to do, just shows up, while he can still spend a lot of time with his family and do what's important.
Well, and at the end of Thor 4, like he actually filmed those scenes with his daughter, did he not?
Yep.
So, like, now, like, his character does have a daughter in the MCU. So, and not only that, but it's, the daughter is very powerful as well because of the being that she, basically took on, I guess, or is a part of her or
Eternity. Yep.
Yeah, Eternity. I don't want to say it like she is Eternity, but like
she has like a
connection.
born of Eternity.
Yeah, so it's like a connection almost.
Or reborn, I should say.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I almost feel like that's going to be something that's used against Kang in some way. Like, I think that's like a very powerful being that they can use there that Thor now has a connection to as well through the little girl. So, who knows?
And maybe who knows too, his kids were in Love and Thunder as well. All of his kids were in it. Even his wife was in it. His wife was, when he was in the beginning, made love to a wolf woman on a wolf. That was his wife in that scene. And both of his boys were in the movie too, as well. And so maybe he can work it into where, they take more prominent roles as part of Asgard. Maybe his kids do, as things go forward, and he's still the king. And that way they can still do Thor stuff, but he's still there with his family as well. So something to keep an eye on. But yeah, that is all the news for today. Thanks for joining me last minute, Alex. This was kind of an impromptu thing. We were talking about, when can we do the news and our schedule and all that kind of stuff. So we just figured, we'll do it today. And he's like, go ahead without me. Go ahead and get it done today because we had a lot to catch up on. So thank you all for joining us for this impromptu news stream. We will be streaming again on Saturday. We will have Fred for Agree or Disagree number 200. Andy will be back with us. But we will be streaming 2 hours later than our usual time, which was 1 hour later than we streamed yesterday for the one with Eric Woods. So just to be a heads up, I'll get that scheduled here after the stream's over. Any last things before we go, Alex?
Nope, nothing for me.
Okay. Well, everybody on the U.S. side, Thanksgiving is this week, so enjoy your time with your families. Happy Thanksgiving. We will see you on Saturday.
Yep. Thanks,
See you
guys.
later.
Why don't you tell them about the time we faced